Hello Wolfpack, we're making this video today to clear up some of the stuff that's been going on in the market and generally just ask the question, what is the next step for Bitcoin? What is the market structure looking like overall? And what I will say is that, well, Bitcoin has broken. I spoke about this yesterday a lot with Mega Well Crypto, but I know that those are long videos and a lot of people probably wouldn't stick around for the whole video. Bitcoin has broken the 50-week SMA, right? It's broken the 50-week SMA. It's closed above the 50-week SMA, just barely, but it has done it, okay? And that does put us in a place in which we're doing something that's slightly different to what we did in 2018 for the first time in this entire bear market, okay? Now, would I consider this a place to be macro bullish? I know I've said in the past this is a place in which I'd consider to be macro bullish. Personally, now, looking at the market, I don't think so. But what I will say as well is that I don't think I'm going to be macro bullish until the current macro environment is cleared up in terms of a recession, pending recession, in terms of interest rates, in terms of lots of different things here. And another one being, for example, the 4-year cycle theory. Let's bring that up right now and then we can take a look at that. Now, before I even start speaking about this, right, there has been a slight shift of my opinion on Bitcoin, okay? And I want to say first and foremost, which a lot of people are getting confused about, I've been trading Bitcoin this entire time. I've been trading altcoins this entire time, right? I trade constantly. My job is a trader. I'm a trader. I'm a full-time trader. I'm in a trade probably every second day, right? Not quite every day because I've got stuff to do, but every second day, roughly, I enter a trade, right? And this is why I have a Telegram group that trades altcoins. And so my macro opinion on Bitcoin is not that, oh, it's bearish and you should completely stay out of the market. It's bearish and you should be more conservative. So, when you put it in that perspective, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. What I will say is that 48K is a very important zone in order for the TA, the charts, the short-term charts, to look bullish, right? Right now, I still think the charts look bearish. I think they look overbought. I think they look bearish. Break 48K, and I think it will look bullish. But at this point, in terms of macro, now there's a difference between short-term bullish and macro bullish, right? Macro, I would say, depends what you mean by macro, right? Obviously, 4-year cycle still going. So yeah, long term, like decades, 100% bullish on Bitcoin. But, the next year, I'm not actually bullish on Bitcoin. I'm still bearish on Bitcoin until these concerns get kind of cleared up about interest rates, about, recession. I've said it, 4-year cycle theory invalidated. I've said it before. So what is the 4-year cycle? This 4-year cycle started in the first halving, right? It started in 2012. Second half in 2016, third half in 2020. And it's a trend that's been occurring on Bitcoin ever since. It's played out 3 separate times. You need 3 data points to connect a trend. The trend is successfully connected now. There's 3 data points. And so we can confidently say that this is a trend now. It's no longer a theory. It's actually more of a trend. I just call it a theory out of habit. But the 4-year cycle trend, the 4-year cycle theory, I'm going to keep calling it theory, essentially aims to predict when the bull market tops will be and when the bear market bottoms will be, and how long it takes to get in between. Now, I would say it's not based off percentage, because percentage gain changes every cycle. It's very unpredictable. It's based off date ranges. What we can see is that from bottom to top, 1,064 days. From bottom to top in the next cycle, exactly the same, 1,064 days. Immediately, there's a trend there, okay? Okay, so from top to top, 1,400. From top to top, 1,400 again. Okay, then go from bottom to bottom, 1,400, and then from bottom to supposed bottom, 1,400, and then taking from top to bottom, 400 days, top to bottom, 400 days, and then again, we're suggesting that top to bottom is going to be 400 days again, and lining that up with an average of the 1,400, that brings us to about November 2022. That might have been very confusing. It's very hard to explain in an articulate fashion. It's a lot of numbers being thrown around, but essentially, the 4-year cycle theory suggests, the way I have it at least, and I think this is the correct way, the 4-year cycle theory suggests that the bottom on Bitcoin, the bear market bottom on Bitcoin, will be coming in somewhere around November 2022, give or take a month, right? Can't be certain. Give or take a month, that would be the bottom. Now, obviously, if we break all-time highs here, right, we go up, we break 69K, we go to the 70K, 80K region, the 4-year cycle theory is invalidated, because this whole trend is invalidated, and we need to extend from bottom to top, all the way down, and it won't be 1,064 anymore. It'd be 1,200. That would invalidate the trend. And then we'd also need to extend from top to top all the way down, and that would be 1,600. So again, I'm just reiterating, if Bitcoin breaks all-time highs here anywhere in the future, this year, that would be an invalidation of the 4-year cycle theory. That would be an invalidation of a 10-year long trend. So you can understand my concern when people say it's going to all-time highs. And then on top of that, you've got the macro situation. Okay, and we'll look at that now. When did Bitcoin start falling? Right? It started falling in November. When did the S&P start falling? It started falling in January. Okay, very close together. When did the S&P start showing weakness? When did it start leveling its tops? November. In fact, it did it on the exact same day as Bitcoin. When it stopped growing exponentially and it started showing weakness, it did it on the exact same as Bitcoin. And after that point, we had bearish divergence. So there's a correlation there, right? The S&P 500 got weak when Bitcoin got weak, or vice versa, right? So the trend is still that Bitcoin is connected to traditional markets. Now, going into a recession, what we can see, right, is bond yields rising massively. These are bond yields over the last year. You can see in November 2021, these bond yields started picking up and rising massively. Why is that? Because people feared that interest rates will be risen. Interest rates rising essentially means that businesses and companies and governments can basically loan a lot less money because they have to pay back higher interest rates. And essentially they have less spending money. They have less money in general. The average person who's got a mortgage, who's got a car, who's got credit card debt, etc., all of that goes up. They have less purchasing power, and generally it comes with high inflation, right? That's the reason why you raise them in the first place, to fight inflation. But essentially raising interest rates, for the Federal Reserve will lead to basically everyone having less spending power. And obviously that's going to lead to lower stock valuations. And as of right now, the trend is that's going to lead to more people flocking into cash, right? When stocks crash, when the stock market goes into a bear market, which we haven't seen for 14 years, 10 years, something like that. Essentially, it means that the DXY pumps. So DXY is an index that measures the strength of the US dollar in relation to other currencies. Now, if stocks go into recession, what are people going to do? They're going to sell their stocks. Where are they going to sell them into? USD. So this is going to pump up. And this historically is one of the most reverse correlated charts to Bitcoin that you can find, right? When this thing goes up, Bitcoin goes down. And we've seen that over time. We've seen that, for example, in the 2018 bear market, okay? This bottomed out here in January. When did Ethereum bottom out? When did altcoins bottom out or top out in 2018? They topped out in January. So when the Bitcoin market, when the crypto market topped out, this thing bottomed out, okay? And then we were heading up over here. And when the crypto market saw its halving and it started its bull market in May, this thing topped out and then crashed, okay? So there is a trend here. When this thing tops out, Bitcoin bottoms out. When this thing bottomed out, Bitcoin tops out. This isn't bottomed out yet. In fact, it's just broken an ascending wedge to the upside, and it's got a lot more ways to go until it reaches this red resistance box. And given the fact we're heading into a recession, most likely, when people flock into cash, this is just going to keep pumping. That's going to be very bad for Bitcoin. So then we need to look at the TA and what's actually going on with the TA. What we've seen on Bitcoin in the last day, and by the way, guys, there was a few different structures that were potentially playing out for Bitcoin. One of which was an ascending triangle, one of which was an ascending wedge formation, and one of which was an ascending channel formation. I think Bitcoin is still in the ascending channel formation. Why is that? Because this last daily candle close is rejected from the top of a supposed channel that has been tested on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate occasions. 3 if you don't count these as separate candles. So yeah, this is definitely a channel formation. What are we seeing in this channel formation? As Bitcoin rises, the volume is slightly descending over time, right? It's hard to get a measured thing. Let me actually bring up a different indicator real quick. I've changed the volume into a kind of a line formation here, and we can see that if we draw some trend lines, we can see that this is generally downtrending volume. Ever since the upwards trend started, generally speaking, the volume is slightly downwards trending, which kind of suggests that the move is weakening by the day. Now, there isn't as much bearish strength as I was expecting. I'll give that. That's granted. I think people know that. But what I am seeing right now is we're still in a bearish structure, an ascending wedge formation on a longer time frame, and we're still rejecting off of that structure. In fact, what we've just done here on the last daily candle close, debatably, is form a shooting star formation, rejecting from that wedge, which is generally a very bearish candle formation. So I don't think it looks particularly good right now. Now, what I can say is that we have made bullish progress. There's no doubt behind that. Jumped above the bull market support band, jumped above the 50-week SMA. There's a lot of critical resistance that's been taken. And my argument isn't that Bitcoin is not going to break upwards. My argument is that I think, regardless of what it does, we're going to have to remain cautious, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me whether Bitcoin jumps up to like 52K, 53K, jumps up to 56K, who cares, right? At the end of the day, as long as that 4-year cycle theory is there, it suggests that Bitcoin's not going to be seeing all-time highs, right? That's what I'm interested in. Now, I don't even think this needs to affect the way we invest, because if I see an altcoin season coming, for example, it's really not that hard to predict when an altcoin season is on the way. Why is that? Well, all we need to do is go to the Bitcoin dominance chart and see when the altcoin season happens by seeing when it drops below this major support line, right? Bitcoin dominance is the number one predictor, the number one indicator that it's actually the only thing that suggests an altcoin season is happening, right? When this drops below major support, we triple bottom on at this point. Yeah, okay, we can start investing into altcoins massively and start expecting an altcoin season. At this point, I don't think me being macro uncertain, I wouldn't even say I'm bearish anymore, macro uncertain is necessarily a sign that we need to be we need to stop investing, or we need to be extremely cautious, right? What I'm saying is that don't get ahead of yourself, right? This is probably not the time to go 100K into a long-term Bitcoin position. You know what I mean? This is the time that you potentially might need to be looking at the market, understanding that it's moving upwards, understand that there's good trading opportunities that are coming from this move upwards, but also understand that there are threats that crypto is facing now that it simply has not faced before. Namely recession, namely an invalidation of the Fourier cycle theory, and understand that those threats are potentially a lot bigger than breaking above 48K, right? But if I'm looking at the TA alone, separate the TA from the macro, looking at the TA alone, it looks pretty good. What I would say is that breaking out of this channel would make it look great, okay? That's what I'd say about TA, and my whole position lies in the fact that the macro is what I'm concerned about now, not the TA, the macro. So look, at the end of the day, guys, I think that this is the time for short-term scalp trading, right? I don't think this is the time for buying into long-term positions. This is not a renewed bull cycle in any way that we've seen before. We've never seen a bull market start this way. This will be the first time this happens, right? Invest with the trend until it ends. The trend so far has not ended yet. There is no defining chart that shows you breaking above the 50-week SMA will invalidate the Fourier cycle theory, okay? The Fourier cycle theory is invalidated by breaking an all-time high. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. And so the 50-week SMA is a great step in the right direction. It's awesome to have taken that. But the Fourier cycle theory is really what we're looking at right now, because there's no denying that the short-term TA doesn't look too bad, right? But what I am saying is that, the macro situation is looking uncertain. I've said it multiple times. It's hard to display this information in a way that's understandable. That's why I'm saying it over and over again. Now, I want to talk about one more chart before we go. And this is to say that, I'm not necessarily thinking we're out of the bear market territory, because there's no real one indicator that constitutes us being in a bear market or a bull market. There's a lot of suspected indicators, for example, the 50-week, which have broken above, and the bull market support band. But there are trends that are still playing out that are very similar to 2018. Remember, we've only invalidated 2018 fractal by just a smidgen, right? Right now, we're still kind of following the same structure. And what we have right now, for example, on the 3-day chart, is that the 50 and the 200 on the 3-day chart in 2018 compressed in a very similar fashion to what they're doing now when they finally crossed Bitcoin dropped 50%. Okay, so we saw the compression, price bouncing between those compression lines. What is it doing this time? Well, it's doing the same thing, right? It's compressing, and when these lines come together, we might be seeing a very similar drop, and that would be happening in about May. So there's still things to keep an eye out for. The TA is not completely bullish right now. I'd say 48K is what we need, but even at that point, the macro is worrying. So look, I'm not going to make any kind of long-term predictions here on Bitcoin because I genuinely don't know. But what I can say is that this is not a permanently ultra bullish market like it was in 2020 and 2021. It's not, right? It's not the same. This is not a bull market in my opinion. I think I'd actually lean towards the fact that this is a fake out, right? Whether that, I'm not going to base my trading decisions off of that, but whether that plays out and whether it fakes out further or whether it crashes right now, who knows? Because right now we've kind of invalidated everything. I wouldn't say we're clearly bullish. I wouldn't say we're clearly bearish. But what I would say is that the macro is bearish. And so I would lean towards the bearish argument a little bit more at this point still. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Bitcoin. Very confusing at this point in time. I'm trying to collect my thoughts even as I speak. But as I've said in this video, the macro is very uncertain. That kind of prohibits me from being macro bullish at this point in time. Understand what macro bullish is. Macro bullish means that you think Bitcoin's going to go up over a long period of time, right? And even in that word, there's a lot of subjectivity, and that's why it's so hard to kind of talk about this topic. But I'm referring to this year. I don't necessarily think that Bitcoin is going to break all-time highs this year at this point. Okay? If it does, it does. And if an altcoin season happens, guess what? We'll be able to see that happening and capitalize on it. We don't need to predict. We can just react at this point. But I would lean towards the bearish argument still. And anyway, that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.